Welcome back to part 2 about how to spot dangerous people before they get a chance to hurt you physically, emotionally, sexually, and financially. In the first part, I talked about why you need to recognize when you're being targeted by a predator. Now, let me talk about the other common personality disorder for you to be aware of. How many of the following behaviors apply to a person you know? Over time, it's become obvious that at the beginning of the relationship, they were on their best behavior and seemed to be your perfect partner. But have you found that the more they relaxed into the relationship with you, especially if you married them, the more of the real person is being revealed in the safe environment of the home? Are they now letting out years or even decades of anger that they've had to suppress until now? Are you now the focus of these intense, even violent rages that seem to leap out of nowhere? And do these alternate between periods of being absolutely normal and is even loving towards you, which makes it then difficult to know where the hell you stand with them? Do you feel that they are Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, maybe a loving, caring person one moment and then somebody so vicious that you just barely recognize them the next? And do you wonder which one of them is real? Do you hope that it's just a phase that one day will go away, but so far there's been no sign of it going away? Do you find that you're walking on eggshells most of the time, knowing that no matter what you say or do will get twisted and used against you in some ways? And are you blamed and criticized for just about everything that's wrong in the relationship, even when the criticism doesn't even make much sense to you? And does that make you question whether you are being the unreasonable one, as they constantly tell you that you are the unreasonable one? Do you feel that sometimes the highs are so high when things are incredible and fantastic, and then low lows consisting of feelings of despair, depression, and grief for the relationship that you thought you had, and you find that you feel that you're concealing what you think and feel because you're afraid of what their reaction will be? And it just doesn't seem worth the confrontation or a horrible fight or hurt feelings that will inevitably follow, and has this become so automatic for you that you now have a hard time understanding what you think and what you feel about yourself? Are you afraid to ask for things in the relationship because you're being told that you're too demanding or that there's something wrong with you? Are you repeatedly told that your needs are wrong or unimportant? And do you feel nothing you do is ever right? Or when you do manage to do what they want, they suddenly present new expectations because the rules keep changing, and no matter what you do, you can't win? Do you feel helpless and trapped every time this happens? Are you constantly accused of doing things you didn't do and saying things you didn't say? Do you feel misunderstood a great deal of the time, and when you try and explain, they don't believe you or don't want to listen? Are you constantly put down, yet when you try to leave the relationship, they try to prevent you in all variety of different ways? They try declarations of love, or they promise to change, or they make implicit or even explicit threats, or nobody but me will ever want or love you. Do you have evidence of being lied to, perhaps? Do they violently deny lying and deflecting any conversation away from the topic when you raise it? Or do they seem to manufacture accusations to prove that you're the liar? Do you feel that you're being manipulated and controlled? Do you regularly wonder whether you're losing your grip on reality because they're always putting you down or denying that you have the right to a point of view? Do they act normally in front of other people so that nobody would believe it if you said that what was really going on between you behind closed doors? Do they insist that you stop having contact with your family or friends because you now have them and don't need anyone else? If they drink or take drugs, does their behavior become even more erratic and obnoxious? Is it next to impossible to plan anything, such as a social engagement, because of their moodiness, impulsiveness, or unpredictability, and you find that you're making excuses for them? How often have you tried to convince yourself that it's all normal behavior? Perhaps you're thinking, I had no idea that other people go through exactly the same as me. Well, if you did think that, you might like to know that they have probably got BPD, or borderline personality disorder. On top of all of what I've said so far, some BPD sufferers also have a history of eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia, and threats to commit suicide regularly. Sometimes they're carried out, but mostly their threats and extreme fear of abandonment could come from childhood trauma. But their totally irrational, intense behavior often encourages the very rejection that they fear the most. Now, let me share who these people almost always target. If you are an honest, agreeable, kind, easygoing, sensitive, reasonable, and trusting person who doesn't really like confrontation, then you are more likely to get targeted by these people, simply because you're the type who will be more likely to give them what they want. They aren't going to pick on men who have a tendency to lash out. This is why, if you're a kind man, you must learn to recognize when you're being played as early as possible and refuse to allow yourself to get caught in their clutches. And if she's a woman who accidentally on purpose gets pregnant, your problems become so much more difficult and very complicated. Do everything you can to make sure that can never happen. Being a kind man also increases the possibility that you become part of what is called a codependent relationship. You really must be aware of the dynamics of a codependent relationship. Let me explain it briefly. If you're with someone who fits the criteria of what I've been talking about in this video and in the part 1 video, let me explain what codependency is and why it can ultimately hurt you in the long term. Basically, codependency is a dysfunctional relationship when one person excessively relies on the other for emotional support, validation, or their identity, perhaps under the mistaken belief that they're a caring and considerate person, or they feel they can fix their partner to improve the relationship one day, while the other doesn't want fixing because they want to stay in control or want to feel needed. It's a vicious cycle, and the codependent dynamic is unhealthy and it is completely unsustainable. They often use guilt, manipulation, or emotional outbursts to keep you engaged. Do not think you're being selfish or uncaring by prioritizing your own well-being. You are not punishing the other person, you're protecting your emotional health. If you allow yourself to get sucked into it because of misplaced loyalty to this person who you're made to think needs you so badly, the situation almost always gets worse and you are the one who'll probably suffer. You are made to feel that you're indispensable to the other person's happiness or their emotional stability. This is not true, but realize this. It's not just them. You may also be part of the problem because of how much you may need to feel needed, or you convince yourself that being with someone is more important than being on your own. So recognize the signs of a codependent dynamic as early as possible before you back yourself into a corner that's very difficult to get out of. Realize that extracting yourself from a codependent relationship is not an act of cruelty, but one of self-respect. It's a complex dynamic. For more information, check out Melody Beattie's groundbreaking book called Codependent No More. I hope you found this video helpful. Please click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and share my videos with other guys so they can be helped and help you grow your network with like-minded people as well. You could also buy me a coffee, and there's a link in the description below.